So there's a big immigration problem in America. Today I'm going to be looking at how African immigrants are struggling to settle in Harlem, New York. Let's get right into it. Let's go straight to the news.
Well, now to our series, Migrants in America. Tonight, a closer look at the West African population that's arriving here in New York City.
While some people welcome the new arrivals, others are having a hard time accepting the influx of migrants. Fox 5's Stephanie Bertini reports from Harlem.
Central Harlem, West 116th Street, between Malcolm X and Frederick Douglass Boulevards, an area defined as Little Senegal years ago, has become home base for new migrants and asylum seekers from West Africa. Like this woman from Senegal, who in French tells me she got to New York City the 7th of February. Through word of mouth, she says she learned she could find help at the Senegalese Association of America. The small office, located on 116th, has a newfound level of need. Traditionally a place for Senegalese immigrants to get resources, now it's packed constantly, assisting migrants on immigration matters like asylum claims and other things required to settle in America. Mamadou Dramé is the president of the association. He says the new demands on his office, fueled by the surge of migrants coming to New York City, forced him to expand what's offered here.
Okay, before we continue, please consider liking and subscribing. We're gonna get right into it. We're gonna still continue. I just wanted to mention that there is this influx mostly of Africans Africans and Chinese and people from Haiti. It's coming from Mexico. We're gonna take a quick look video from like a long time ago of how they do the trek all the way from Brazil. They go all the way up to Guatemala and then they cross Mexico and then they end up in America. So my belief is these immigrants in Harlem, that's basically majority, that's the trek they took. Back to the video.
Usually do work from Monday through Friday, but we open Saturday and Sunday for the folks.
Every individual has their own story, and on this day here in Central Harlem, this woman decided to share hers in her own words.
Au Senegal, je vivais avec une fille.
In Senegal, I lived with a girl and my family didn't support it. I had problems with my brothers and sisters, she says, adding her sexual orientation was putting my life in danger.
Let's take the example of Senegal that we know better. If you are, let's say, a gay person, you are most likely subject to a target. You can be stoned to death.
Dramé says the growing demand on his office is not only coming from Senegalese migrants, but new asylum seekers from different parts of West Africa.
To mingle with your folks, to speak your language, you feel a sense of belonging.
African migrants crossing the U.S.-Mexico border are among the almost 200,000 that have made their way to New York City since spring of 2022, many arriving in buses from Texas. The strain on city resources, including shelters, is being felt by all asylum seekers.
Some of these folks are sleeping underground, train stations, outside.
Language, we've learned, is an extra barrier for African asylum seekers.
People were saying that they were stinking, they don't shower, but we just realized that the shelter system, they use a language that these folks don't understand. You're kind of talking in English or in Spanish because these people, they understand French or the local languages.
There are
Okay, let me just pause it right there. Sorry for pausing all the time. The issue that they're coming across, as mentioned in the video, is they're from West Africa, so most of them, well, not most of them, specifically in this case Senegalese, they speak French, but in the shelters it's Spanish and Spanish and Spanish, English, of course. Those are the majority because most immigrants for many years from South America have been crossing, have been from Hispanic world, like Latin America. So this situation here, I'm not gonna question whether she's gay or not, but people will, humans are humans. They will say anything if you can save yourself. If So I'm not the sexual orientation police, but what I'm trying to say in this case is the lady, they made that trek all the way. They ended up somehow, they were crossing America illegally through Texas, and then they got put on buses. For many, if you don't know what's going on, the governors in Texas, I believe, what's the governor's name? The guy, I forgot his name, I think Greg Abbott. They started putting immigrants and sending them to sanctuary cities so that I guess the Democrats can also face what the border states are facing. So they've been sending people to New York, and it's really overwhelming the system. It's overwhelming the system, and in many cases it's causing commotion, it's causing problems within the locals living there and the migrants, because that's bound to happen if a huge population moves in and the people living there are seeing that maybe the new people are getting resources that should be going to them. That's gonna cause a problem, of course. So this is what happened. Now, okay, we can come back to the video real quick. I just want to go back to this old video of how they make it through all the way to America. Now, start with an article. This article shows that many of them, like this guy who was featured here, he came from Cameroon. They flew into Colombia, and then they go all the way through the Darien Gap. They cross, they go through Guatemala, and then they enter Mexico. It's a very common thing. Most people go through, the article says they go through Brazil and Ecuador, because the visa requirements in Brazil and Ecuador is just, nope, it's very lax. It's very lax. So if you can fly to Brazil and if you can afford to pay people and go all the way up, I think in Mexico they call them what, the polleros, or yeah, I think in Mexico they call them like polleros. Those are the people who you pay and then they cross you, like they help you cross into America. So most of these people, they start all the way from Brazil, they go through Ecuador. It's quite a long journey. They're paying thousands and thousands of dollars. There is this map here, like how this guy went. He went all the way from Cameroon and then Ecuador, cross the Darien Gap. They get stuck in Tapachula. Tapachula is like a border state, I believe, in Mexico. They go all the way to Tijuana, and then they try to apply for asylum, which obviously does not work there. You cannot cross into America, for like economical reasons. That's why I understand why some would say they are persecuted or because of their sexual orientation and things like that. So they get there to Tijuana, and then they cross, they find their way, they enter either Arizona, those border places, and the governors there mostly are red Republicans. The Republicans get them, ICE gets them, and then they're sent to the sanctuary cities, and now that's how they end up in New York and other places, so far away from where they began. So let's see how they began here. So this is a very, very old video. It's from like 5 years ago. And it was about these Africans who were stuck in Mexico, Tapachula, and they were having also issues with the Mexican police and the Mexican locals. Back to the video.
Stuck. African migrants who've made a dangerous journey over thousands of kilometers up through Latin America in the hope of reaching the US, but instead they've ended up here in Tapachula, South Mexico. The Mexican government, wary of incurring the wrath of American President Donald Trump, won't let them cross the country to get to the US border. And is
just gonna post there. Those Mexican authorities are not enjoying the song at all. They're like, what are you guys doing? Like, let me back it out. Like, look at the guy's face. Like, he's like, guy, why are you singing?
Across the country to get to the US border, and is only prepared to let them leave via the south back to Guatemala. So for the last 4 months, around 1,000 people have camped around the gates of the Tapachula Migrant Detention Center in limbo.
Look at the conditions here. It rains every day. We're camped amidst the water. The authorities haven't told us anything. We're being dehumanized.
Okay, so that's what's happening. They're entering Mexico. They face the authorities. The authorities are telling them, go back to Guatemala where you came from, and then they end up in camps, and it's causing issues with the locals there. Let me see if I can push it forward. Where was this? You know what, actually, let's go back to the other one. I don't want to forget. Let's go back to the other video, the original one. See what happened in Harlem.
Cultural barriers too.
Some of the shelters are really hard for some of our folks, because if you're a Muslim and then the food that they offer in the shelter, because they don't eat pork, they don't eat ham.
Drame says the situation is causing more and more migrants from Africa to navigate towards not only his office, but the area of Harlem it sits in.
Sorry for pausing 50,000 times. I know, you want to kill me, but relax. Okay, so what happens is this, like in this case situation, Senegalese, most are Muslim, and they don't eat pork. If you don't know anything about Islam, they do not eat pork. Pork is unclean. But they go to the shelters, and the shelters there in Harlem, they're going to be having some pork, and you know, they're gonna be like, nope, I cannot eat pork, it's against my religion. Now, we in a normal logical situation, you would be thinking, you know, like, I don't want to use the wrong term, but it's a saying, like, beggars can't be choosers, because you're trying to, you know, get help. You cannot be given food when you're hungry, and then you say, oh, I can't eat that, it's against. But that's how it is. That's how it is. Those are the stresses that they're facing in Harlem. Back to the video.
Community does what community does. New York does what New York does. America does what America does, which is generally, we'd like for it to welcome immigrants.
Longtime Harlemite and Deputy Borough President Keisha Sutton James says to her, it's not surprising at all. She's lived in the area for decades.
And they're doing the work that they can do without a work permit. So that's a lot of times delivery work. Have a lot of downtime. Right. So they are, as I'm told by Senegalese community leaders, as I'm told, they are spending time hanging out in between their deliveries, you know, on the street, again, where they have, when I say on the street, I'm saying on the sidewalk and in the street, hanging out with, you know, other folks that they know.
And 116th is generally where they're congregating, right by the Senegalese Association of America and right across the street from Canaan Baptist Church. Senior Pastor Thomas Johnson shares his take.
I got to tell you, the wave came in like a tsunami. It didn't trickle in. One day, I pulled up into my parking space, and there it was. There they were, hundreds.
The pastor says many are uncomfortable with the new faces.
I don't go to 116. I used to go to 116. I avoid that area at all costs.
Like Anita Elam, who has lived in Harlem for decades.
It's overwhelming. It's scary, but it is what it is.
Why are you scared?
I don't know them. It's just a lot of them. They're just all over the place.
So as I was saying, these are the locals in Harlem. Now, some of them are saying they're afraid to go across those areas because, you know, the migrants are just standing on the streets. And, I mean, it's understandable. I mean, especially for ladies, be afraid of that. Even me as a guy, I would not just be walking through a random group of people without, you know, being cautious of my surroundings. So it's understandable, but those are some of the challenges that they're facing, the locals against the migrants and also the issues of crimes that is increasing, and they also have to work illegally. They don't have social security, they don't have those documents required, so most are doing deliveries, they're doing things without the papers. Let's see.
Community leaders confirm recent headlines of migrants committing crimes, like the group responsible for attacking 2 NYPD officers in Times Square, are fueling some of the concerns in Harlem. But Drame says the majority of those here are not making trouble, rather just looking for a safe place and acceptance.
We exist in peace. Most of these people, they just run away from being jailed, from repression, from persecution.
The realities of their lives might not be apparent at a glance, but their presence is surely being felt as New York City continues to contend with its migrant crisis.
Okay, so that's basically the video, but what I'm trying to say is, let's be real, these are economical migrants. That's what we can say, economical migrants. The situation back at home is very rough, and if you did not grow up in America, the way America is portrayed to the rest of the world, it's incredible, it's unbelievable. I remember when I was a kid, all I was dreaming of was coming to America based on how the PR system of America is. It shows the place like heaven on earth. So people will do whatever it takes. If you're outside of America, the images you see of America, for the most part, I mean, of course, for Europeans, they're going to be thinking differently. But for the most part, if you're living outside in like a third world country, the images you see of America it's of hope and, the American dream and, all those things. So these people, the truth is, they are economical migrants. They are not really coming from war and things like that. So they are making this dangerous, very, very expensive trip based on a dream. That's what it is. That's the reality. It is all based on a dream. How true it is, if they will make it or not, time will tell. But we'll just have to wait, like I said. So tell me what you think about the situation. Please consider liking, subscribing, and share on all the networks. I will see you.
Oh my goodness, all the networks! Wow! All the networks!